Hello, can everyone see and hear me? Please let me know in the chat box below if you can see and hear me. Okay. Cool. Right, tonight what we're going to talk about is the Advanced Diploma in Accounting Synoptic. Can everyone see the slides to my right here? Perfect. Let's go. Get going. Right. The Synoptics are a new thing that's come in for AQ 2016, and as much as the AAT put a positive spin on the fact that it's a really good thing, it's what employers want, the reason why Synoptic exams have come in is for apprenticeship reasons, because the new apprenticeship rules, the Trailblazers, require a summative end assessment. Now, in real world speak, what that means is for a qualification to be qualifying for funding, which makes the AAT an awful lot of money, it must have one of these exams that come at the end of the course that test everything. It is something that I think employers do actually like, and it's something I quite like as well, but that is the reason why it came in. It's a new thing for AQ 2016. We weren't going to cover all the other sort of weird anomalies of AQ 2016. We've got plenty of blogs on that, but there's specifically tonight we're going to cover the Synoptic exam. My name's Nick Craggs. I'm the AAT Distance Learning Manager at First Intuition. Without stand on attention, if you've got a question that is burning a hole in your mind at that moment, please just type then and there. Don't wait to the end, where we will have time for questions anyway. So moving on. So if you are on AQ 2016, it's now the Level 3 Advanced Diploma in Accounting. Previously, on AQ 2013, you sat one exam, you passed that exam, you moved on, and if it's ethics, you forgot that exam. Now, you can't do that under AQ 2016 because, as you can see here, for advanced bookkeeping, final accounts preparation, management accounting, costing, and indirect tax, you will sit an exam for them, specifically on them, just as you did on AQ 2013. Now, the ethics exam has gone. The spreadsheets exam has gone. Ethics and spreadsheets will be assessed within the Synoptic exam. So there is no exam here or here for spreadsheets. They are just assessed in here. But all the others, so the mandatory units of advanced bookkeeping, final accounts, management accounting, indirect tax, will have their own exams, and then it will also be assessed in the Synoptic exam. Now, what's really good with AQ 2016, which students really love, is you get an overall grade for your level now. So you get pass, merit, and distinction, which you never got before. Before, it was just competent or not yet competent. So you could have scraped every exam at 70%, or you could have got 100%, you end up with the same result. Now, you can go to your boss and say, look, I got a distinction, I would like a pay rise. So the overall mark consists of your results from the various exams. So as you can see on the right-hand side, the Synoptic, as you can imagine, because there are 2 units that are not assessed anywhere else, makes up a large proportion of the overall weighting. Indirect tax is only 10%. It is quite a small unit anyway. Management accounting, costing, and advanced bookkeeping, the old accounts prep and cost and revenues, they're quite big units. They make up quite a lot of the weighting towards the overall grade. We'll come to the overall grades later. And final accounts, a relatively small one, so it's only 15%. But the one thing I want to stress here on AQ 2016, you actually sit in 5 exams. On AQ 2013, you would have sat 6. However, one of them, Synoptic, covers all 6 units. And the Advanced Diploma, or Level 3 on old school names, is the only level where the Synoptic covers every single unit at that level. So on the foundation level, the computerized accounts unit isn't in the Synoptic, and at the professional level or old school level 4, the optional units are not in the Synoptic, but at the advanced diploma, every single unit comes into the Synoptic, which is nice. So that's how the unit sorts of all come together into the Synoptic exam. So ethics and spreadsheets is only assessed in the advanced synoptic. They don't have their own exams, and you see the 4 that I've covered are going to be have their own exam, but also covered in synoptic. At the foundation level, the synoptic is a 2-hour exam. At the professional and advanced, it's a 3-hour exam. So it's actually marked by the AAT. So on the old AQ 2013, your training provider marked your ethics and your spreadsheets exams, and they could give you a provisional result in a matter of days, hours if they're on the ball, and then it eventually appears in a statement of achievement. This is now marked by AAT, and we'll come to what consists in the exam, but that there is some element of human marking. So that means just like 2013 level 4, you have to wait 6 weeks for your results, and that will come directly from AAT. So what will happen is on a Thursday, you will log on to my AAT and you'll see whether you've passed or not. However, the AAT want to stress that although you can get a pass, merit, and distinction on AQ 2016, competency has not changed. Competency is still at 70%. It's the same pass mark that you needed to pass on AQ 2013. So if you say AAT level, AAT qualified, the required level of knowledge to become AAT qualified has not changed whatsoever. So that's the bad news, is there is a wait now for the synoptic exam. Now, we're going to cover like what kind of things are going to be tested. We're going to go a bit more specific about how the exam's structured, but basically in the synoptic exam, we're going to cover sort of what is the understanding of accountancy in an organisation. So it's going to be very scenario based. So it's not just prepare an ETB from accounts preparation. It's gone, if an ETB does come up, it is specifically to a business, and there's lots of scenario sort of information going on with the business. And as you can imagine, as ethics doesn't have its own exam, there's an awful lot on the importance of ethical behaviour. The AAT are quite sort of leading the way with ethics. They have their own sort of AAT ethics microsite as well. They are so focused on ethics. So you can imagine it is sort of fundamental throughout the paper. Then you'll get into sort of the advanced bookkeeping things. So it'll be a scenario. It'll be, for example, someone's thinking of their business changing to a limited company or a sole trader or a partnership, and you've got to come up with a good example of the best way forward for them. And then indirect tax, the actual calculation of indirect tax and VAT has been tested in the individual exam. But here it's going to be more scenario based. You're going to make a recommendation to the business owner as to what is the best VAT scheme for them. It is meant to be what you would do in the workplace. So it would be like if you're an accountant in practice, someone would go to you and go, what do you think? And it's a bit more about advisory, a bit more about helping clients as opposed to using incomplete records and getting the right answer. It is, like what you would actually do. So it's not very narrow focused on here we're testing you on indirect tax, and we're going to completely ignore everything to do with the business structure and everything like that because that's a different exam. We don't cover that. We're going to bring everything together. So it is meant to be, what you would do in the real world. It's meant to be what employers are looking for. And what it will do is sort of consolidate and apply the knowledge and understanding. So bring everything together from the mandatory units. And then obviously there's going to be lots of spreadsheets stuff in the exam because that's not tested anywhere else. And we're going to come to the structure of the exam because spreadsheets are a massive part of this exam. And then again, costs and revenues. We've tested whether you can flex the budget in costs. I shouldn't say costs and revenues. Management accounting costing is its new name. And but we're going to say, like, you've got a client. What is the best form for them to use cost their products and things like that, or what's the best way for them to value stock? And then using complete records. This is the final accounts unit come in to identify information and probably advise them how best to avoid missing information. In answer to that, Connie, I'm not going to lie, yes is the answer. But it's the same with like the old, any AAT exam. So if you work in practice, you will find advanced bookkeeping and final accounts a lot more straightforward because you've got experience of it. However, you won't have covered anything in management accounting. You won't have covered anything to do with variances or flex budgets, things like that. So the AAT qualifications is designed for people who do not work in accounts. It's designed to get people into accounts. So even if you work in like management accounting, you wouldn't know anything about advanced bookkeeping or final accounts. There are very few people whose job will help in every single AAT unit. I'm one of them, but then I've already passed. It's AAT tutors whose job covers every unit. Don't feel you're a disadvantage because you don't work in accountancy, because there's lots of people who do work in accountancy that have no experience of all the other facets. So don't worry about that. But I mean, obviously it will help in certain areas, but your job, no job covers every single unit of the AAT. So don't worry about it. The AAT is a qualification that gets people into work. It's not designed to be a qualification for people into work. It is what the AAT describes as a life-changing qualification. It changes you from one career to another. So don't panic. That's the kind of thing that are being tested. It's more about, for the mandatory units, that's more about advice and things like that that they don't test in the specific unit exams. And the reason why, from a technical point of view, all the individual exams, you'll get your results straight away, just like you will on AQ 2013. And the reason why they get your results straight away, because they're marked by computers. So they've got to be very numerically based. Now with the Synoptic, the AAT have the chance to test you about more written questions about these units that they've never had a chance before. So that's why, in a flex budget, they're not going to test you in a massive flex budget, because they can do that in the actual unit assessment. What they want to do is to test you about your understanding and whether you can explain that to someone, because this is an opportunity they've had to have human markers on cost and revenues or management accounts and costing that they've never had before. So from a technical aspect in an exam, it means they can do things they've never been able to do before. So the format of the assessment. I didn't see a great deal of point of running through the AAT mock exam. The reason being is the Synoptic exams are going to be very, very different in style every time. You cannot think that that is how the question is going to be structured. You cannot think that that question there, number 3, is going to be on that, followed by that, followed by that. Obviously, the numbers and name would change, but that would be very structured. It's not going to be like that. It is going to be very, very different. Anything from any unit could be tested, almost in any order, in any sort of depth. So something you could get a really big question on one thing, and then another time you get a very small question on it, or ignored. You cannot assume that if you've done the AAT mock, that is how it's going to be. It's not going to be like that. So I cannot stress this enough. Formats will vary. It's not going to be as structured as the AQ 2013 exams. It is going to test your knowledge and understanding, and it's going to test mainly your ability to apply the knowledge you've got in the context of the scenario. So it's something you cannot assume that you've done the 2 AAT synoptic sample assessments, and that's what the synoptic exam is going to be like, because it's not. It's really, really going to vary. I cannot stress that enough. I mean, from a training provider's point of view, we write our mock exams based on the AAT sample assessments. There are only 2 for us to base it on. But we do know the AAT have said that that is only indicative. That is not, a prescriptive format of the exam. So, we're writing very different styles of synoptics, and we get people who've never written AAT exams before to cover it, because you don't want people in that AAT mindset of going, that's going to come up there, that's going up there, that's going up there, because it's not. I cannot stress that enough. So, in the exam, I don't know if you can read that amazingly well, that you've got 7 learning outcomes. So the first one's all about ethical code for accountants and things like that. So that's going to weigh 15% of the exam. Then you've got preparing accounting and VAT records, responding to errors in VAT. So that's the scenario thing. Things have gone wrong. What can you do about it? That's going to be 16% of the overall mark. Interrelation between financial accounting and management accounting. Again, this comes back to the integrated approach. So you're not going to get an advanced bookkeeping question, followed by a management accounting question, followed by an indirect tax question. You're going to get a question that's going to have 3 different things. So you could have, we're going to calculate the VAT understatement. So then you can say, what do they have to do in relation to HMRC to tell them about this understatement of VAT? The client's not going to do that. What are the ethical implications of the client not telling HMRC about the understatement of VAT? So it can flow from one subject to another, to another, to another, all within the same question. So it's this integrated approach, which is what you do in real life. You can't just, go have a client that's not going to pay the VAT. You calculate that they've underpaid it by that point and then just walk away. That's not what you do in the real world. You would have an ethical obligation as an accountant to do something about that. So it's that key integration of one subject to another to another. And then obviously apply ethical and accounting principles when preparing final accounts for different types of organisation. Different organisations is a theme we see coming up quite a lot. So that's more advisory about limited companies, sole traders and partnerships. So that is something that we see that terminology used quite a lot. It seems indicative that that's going to be quite a common theme. And then we move on to spreadsheets. So it's demonstrate a range of spreadsheet knowledge and skills when working with accounting data, and then use relevant spreadsheets to analyze, interpret. So you're preparing data, then you're analyzing, interpreting it, and then you sort of, just like you do in the old AQ 2013 exams, you enter data, then you use if statements and VLOOKUPs and things like that to do something with the data, and then it's going to be presenting data. And then we move on to the final accounts. So that's the final accounts unit and the advanced bookkeeping unit. But there's going to be some relation to spreadsheets in there as well. So you can see the 7 learning outcomes, and they're not very, very discrete. They're not very, this is a question on this, this is a question on this, this is a question on this. It's not like that. It's all about this integrated approach. Wait for Connie to ask a question, so I'll move on. Very good question. You don't. The AAT, when you say Outlook package, do you mean Excel for the spreadsheets? Yes. The AAT spreadsheets exam is not an exam on Excel. It can be done on various other spreadsheet platforms. So what will happen is you'll go to your local exam centre and you will use the version of Excel that your local exam centre has, which could be anything from Excel 2003 up to Excel 2016. It's not an exam on Excel. The AAT don't say it has to be on Excel. It's based on the software that your exam centre has. Some exam centres are good and will have various versions, and they'll give you the one that you practiced on. Some won't. So it might be worth checking with your exam centre what version of Excel they use. So it's a bit like computerized accounts at the foundation level. Everyone uses Sage, but some people use Sage Instant, some people use Sage 1. You could do it on Xero, you could do it on QuickBooks. That's an exam on computerized accounts package. It's not an exam on Sage. So yes, I wouldn't just assume that your exam centre uses the same version of Excel as you. It's not always the case. So, oh no, perfectly fine. That's not breaking any exam rules. All it's doing is telling you what version of Excel they use, and if they haven't got the one you want, the differences between 16, 13, and 10 aren't massive. It's when you get back to 7 and 2003 and you're using 16, you've got like the ribbon in 16 that's just not there in 2003. You don't want to be doing that. So it is worth checking. So like I mentioned before, the exam's now graded, but the pass mark is still 70%. So anything between 70 and 79 is a pass, then you move on to merit, and then you move into distinction. Now it's nice that you could get a distinction. I wouldn't lose lots and lots of sleep. At the moment, employers have this AAT mindset of you're competent, not yet competent. The employers haven't really got their head around the fact it's going to be graded. So I don't think you'll see lots of job adverts out there saying, I want someone who's AAT advanced level qualified who got a distinction. They'll at best, they'll still probably call it level 3, to be honest. Yes, I believe it will. I haven't seen a 2016 certificate as yet, but I believe it will. Someone would have to get through all of the AQ 2016 stuff already, and it's only been going for 4 months. But yes, I believe it will. So when you take it to your employer or your boss and go, look, it will look quite good. No, it's the overall score. So you could pull it up with the other units. And the other thing you can do is if you only get a pass on your first unit, you can resit the exam if you want and get a higher mark. And the higher mark counts. If you resit the exam and fail, they are not going to take the pass away from you. Or say you've got 85% and you resat it to get a distinction, and then you've got 75%, the 85 would still count. So if you wanted to, you could resit it. So don't worry about that. Now, one thing I want to stress is this exam is split into two very distinct sections. So the first one is where you test the mandatory units and ethics. The second section is all about spreadsheets. And if you remember back to your 2013 or even the 2016 individual unit assessments, you can fly around from one question to another. You can go back to one. That's fine. You cannot do this in this exam. So if you move from section 1 into section 2, you will not be able to access section 1 again. So if you think, well, I'll come back to this, and you go into section 2, you will not be able to go back to anything in section 1. You will get a warning, but you cannot go back to it. So each section is 90 minutes long. So the other thing I want to say is time cannot be transferred over from one section to another. So literally, they are like two 90-minute exams you'll be sitting concurrently. So if you finish section 1 in 80 minutes, those extra 10 minutes will not be added to section 2. You will still only have 90 minutes for section 2. So you've spent the money, you've got to the exam centre, you paid your exam fee, you took time off work. There is no point rushing through section 1 because you will, all that time that as soon as you click complete on section 1, that time is lost. It's not like any other exam. So you may as well spend the full 90 minutes on section 1 and then move on to section 2 because you cannot go back and you cannot save that time. That is a key distinction. It's very unique to this section, the advanced level synoptic. Yes, you can move through questions in question 1, you can move through questions in section 2, but you cannot go from section 2 to section 1. So you can get, so there's there's various questions in section 1. You could go to the last one, you could go to the first one, you can move around all the way through that, but you just cannot go from section 2 to section 1. So what we're going to do now is look at the various sections. Good question. That nicely leads into section 1. So section 1, there will be 4 tasks, and it's going to cover the 4 mandatory units. However, it will not be 4 questions on the 4 mandatory units. So there's going to be ethics embedded into pretty much every single one of the 4 tasks. You will also be given reference material. So if anyone sat the 2013 AAT indirect tax exam, you get an awful lot of information in that exam. You will do in this one. So you'll get access to the professional ethical code. You have lots of things like that. And it's more a case of how are you going to apply that to the scenario. So you've got, it's just like you would have in the real world. You've got all the books on your shelf, as you do, and you would then open it up and apply it to your scenario. It's not a test of can you learn the ethical code. We don't want people with good memories. We want people who can do the job. So we give the ethical code and it's applying it to the scenario. And like I mentioned before, financial accounting and VAT and ethical dilemmas. So it's calculating the underpayment and then what will you do with it? So like financial accounting, maybe there's made an error in the accounts and there's been an underpayment of like income tax, say. What will you do about that? You'll inform the client. You'll probably submit a serious report to the National Crime Agency because you suspect money laundering. Then you would have to resign from the client. That's the sort of thing that would come up. And then moving on to, there'll be management accounting, and there will be some numerical things in there, but there'll be written questions, because the AAT have never had a chance to question, written questions at this level before. It does also make the transition into the professional level or old level 4 a lot easier, because a lot of students do level 3, they're just learning what to do, they don't really know why they're doing it. And at level 4, we ask the question, why are you doing it, with these written questions, and they just don't like it. So it leads quite nicely into the last level. And then there's going to be a lot about accounting concepts. So a lot about the characteristics of accounts. Are they true and fair? If not, why not? Are the accounts being changed so they're misleading? So it's going to be a case of you'll start off with a financial accounting question, you'll move into a management accounting question, and then an ethical dilemma about that, or VAT will be in there. So there will be 4 tasks. It's the 4 mandatory units going to be there, and ethics is going to be in there as well. But the key things is there's going to be pretty much a written question in nearly every task, but it could relate to anything. You cannot predict what the written question is going to be on, or how it's going to be applied. So you really need to practice your written questions and your ability to convey information across to the reader. So written tasks. Written tasks are something that people don't like. The AAT students like just bashing numbers through calculators. Written tasks are really important, and really important at the next level. So one of the main points I want to make is make it relevant. Don't just tell the marker about ethics, just generic ethics about how you make a suspicious activity report. It's not going to get you very many marks. It needs to be related to the scenario. You can't just say, you should submit a suspicious activity report. You say you should submit a suspicious activity report because this has happened in the scenario. So you've got to pick up information from all the info from all the additional information from the all the extra notes that you're given in the exam as well, all the resources. And write enough. We're not looking for essays, but we're just not looking for bullet points. Really, bullet points are pushing it. You need to write an explanation. There's got to be lots and lots of whys, lots of explanations. It's not a case of this is money laundering. This is money laundering because, or it would be better to structure your business as a limited company because, not just this is the answer. You need to justify your reasons. Likewise, think about the bigger picture. Think about the scenario. What is best for that business owner? Not what's best for you. Not what's best for the general person. It's that specific person. And then again, is it really, really important? Stress. That is really important. If it's insignificant, you probably shouldn't be writing about it anyway. And then finally, integrated. Bring different units together. The marker's going to love that. The markers love bringing things together at level 4, or the professional level. So in like financial statements at level 4, what they like is you talk about this ratio, and then you say, but that is also indicated by this ratio. Rather than just talking about this ratio, they're going to talk about that ratio. Or if you're talking about budgeting level 4, if you mention like a material price variance that's adverse because you've bought better material, if you link that to a material usage variance because it's better material, you don't have as much wastage. They love that sort of stuff, bringing things together. So you want to use the sort of acronym P. Make a point, explain your point, and apply it to the scenario. So that's section 1. There's an awful lot going on in section 1. Very hard to predict what's going to come up, what's not going to come up. It's very fluid in terms of what's going to be where. Has anyone got any questions on that as yet? I know it's very ambiguous about what will be where, what's going to come up, but that's the nature of the synoptics. Very good question. It is being recorded. I will email it out. So don't worry about it. So yeah, afterwards you can watch this to your heart's content. I will no doubt be putting it on a blog post somewhere and putting it all over Twitter as I do. So moving on to section 2. This is where your spreadsheets knowledge comes in. So remember, if you're in section 2, you can't go back to section 1. Now you are using spreadsheets. Now, this is very, very similar to the AQ 2013 spreadsheets exam. There are 2 sample assessments on the AAT website, as the AAT do. There will only be 2. All publishers have mock exams available for the Synoptic. All of them are based on the sample assessments, but yeah, I'm going to come to it later. But you want to be doing lots and lots of mocks. You want to be doing as many as possible, as widely varied as possible, because anything could come up. But this one, the second section, is almost very standalone compared to the rest of the Synoptic. The rest of the Synoptic is like a big mess of everything put together, one big cooking pot. This is spreadsheets, very, very distinct. And it's very much like the AQ 2013 exam. And the way it works is you'll download a spreadsheet, you'll enter some data, you'll manipulate some data, and you'll present some data, and then you'll do some other things like checking it and protecting it and that sort of thing. This is going to be very much like the AQ 2013 exam. And it works just like the old one in that you download a spreadsheet, you'll work on that, save it on your desktop, and then you'll upload that into the AAT marking software, and then the AAT will mark that. The only difference is, as I say, it's marked by the AAT, not by your training providers. You will not get a provisional result, and you will have to wait 6 weeks. Very good question, Chan. Very, very different. As an aside, we are getting feedback that some units on AQ 2016, the real exams, are very, very different to the AAT sample assessments. The AAT are changing things up quite a lot with their exams. From what we're hearing, management counted decision and control. Someone told me that nationally the pass rate has fallen to 25%. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I read. It wouldn't surprise me that one's theirs. The exams turn out to be very, very different to these sample assessments, and it's going to be exactly the same thing with Synoptic. It's going to be obviously what the test. They're not going to pull in something that's not on the learning outcomes. There's not going to be a subject that isn't in those mandatory units or the ethics and spreadsheets that we tell you about, but it's how they test it. They just want to make sure that you have this deep understanding. It's not about this is how it's going to be examined, therefore I learn how to do that. I know how to do this, and I can go backwards, I can go forwards, because I really have this deep understanding. So that's section 1, and that's section 2 of the exams. But like I say, they're both 90-minute sections, and you cannot go back from one to another. And the other big change is the exams are not on demand. The individual unit exams are on demand, just like they are in 2013, but the synoptics are not. And as you can see, the advanced synoptic window opens next week. By sheer coincidence, the week after I'm doing this webinar. As you can see, the foundation synoptics, it's a case of when are they not on. So they're not really on the first week of the month, but all the time they're on. Advanced are on a bit less, so it's every sort of 6 weeks or so. Yes. Well, no, it's not a case of each section is differently weighted. The sort of units within the exam are separately weighted. So obviously spreadsheet is going to be a large proportion of the exam. Ethics is going to be a large proportion of the exam. The other ones not so much because they've been tested elsewhere. So there's an awful lot going on in each one. And you can see there's the ones into the end of the year. But yeah, the weightings are quite varied. It's based on the unit as opposed to the exam. But there will be accounts prep sort of questions within the second section sort of thing. So it'll be, but you'll be using spreadsheets to present that data. So although it's all about spreadsheets and all you'll be doing is using spreadsheets, it will be in some way related to accounts prep, or there'll be like a costs and revenues sort of thing. Might be a flex budget, but it's going to be, you know, weighted on a per unit basis. So, as a sort of guide, what you'll need to do, during the 3-hour assessment, you're presented with a range of tasks, a very wide range of tasks. And when it says some of which will require you to provide an answer, there will be lots of written answers, but you can't just say it's going to be numerical, written, ethical, numerical, written, ethical, because it might not be, and you cannot predict what subjects are going to be the written questions. It might be management, accounting, costing. It might not be. All you know that management, accounting, costing is that it will be in there. Now, this is what the AAT is trying to get you to be able to do, to explain financial information to people who are not accountants, people who don't understand what you're talking about. So you need to be able to converse in good English and explain things well. I mean, it says here you're encouraged to proceed through the tasks in the advanced synoptic assessment in the order presented. It doesn't really overly matter. You're going to have to do them all anyway. As I say, there's only 4 tasks in the first section. If you miss one, you're going to struggle to pass. You can move backwards and forwards, but you know, the different units are going to be in different questions anyway, so you can't just avoid management accounting because it could well be in the next one anyway. So it's one of the things is it's not, from what we see, not going to be overly time pressured if you work through each question, read the question carefully, answer it once, put your answer down, move on. It's when you rejigging answers because you come back because you haven't read it properly that you will lose time. Yes, it will be computer based. It uses the same AAT Secure Assess exam software. The only difference is it goes through to AAT to mark rather than your training provider. The numerical questions within it, I should say, are marked automatically still. So don't put commas in for where you should have a decimal point or things like that. They are still marked by a computer. So you know, make sure that you present numerical answers correctly, but the written questions mean that it's a 6-week wait because they are marked by a person. So the way I sort of suggest you prepare for your synoptic assessment, what will have happened is you've studied the 4 mandatory units because you've got to do them first. You can't just sit your synoptic exam until you've sat and passed the 4 mandatory assessments. Once you've done that, you've got to start studying ethics and spreadsheets because they'll be new to you. Then you're going to have to come back to the other 4 papers. You literally are going to have to sit there with all 6 course notes out in front of you. And you're going to have to go from one to another. And like I say, anything from any of those 6 units could come up. Any of it could be a really big question. Any of it could not come up. You really need to be on the ball. And like I say, don't expect the exam to be like the mocks. It really won't. You know, so you need practice at being able to do different types of questions, going forwards, going backwards. Very good question. Always grammar and spelling. And like when I did it, it was handwriting. Always held me back. No, this is a test of your understanding of the subjects and your ability to explain accounting concepts. It's not a test of your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. If the marker can't read it because it's utter gibberish, you will lose marks. If the marker can read it and the spelling mistakes, and if you've used the wrong type of there, you will not lose any marks. It's not a test on that. It's a test on your ability to convey information to people who don't really understand accountancy, and obviously some numerical questions as well. And spend time working on as many exam type questions as possible, as many as you can, as many as wide ranging as you can. You want to experience as many different types of questions as you possibly can. And crucially, because this is very new to AAT students, practice your written questions especially, because your numerical questions you will have already been tested on in the single unit assessments. So they, you should know how to flex a budget because you've done it in management accounting costing exam. It's the written questions that are new here. So I would always practice your written questions, especially. Really focus on it when you come to Synoptic. And also, they're quite hard to mark yourself, written questions. You know, you do a flex budget, your answer's 5, model answer's 4, it's wrong. You write a written question, you look at your model answers, you think, well, it's not a million miles off. It's a very good idea to get someone to check them. So if you've got a tutor with your course, I would ask them to not just the mocks, just say I've done a written question, can you look at it, just a quick glance, if nothing else, because they are very, very hard to mark yourself. I think it does make sense to get some different books for like Kaplan, Osborne. Other books are available. Since they will be written by very different authors, so I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Yes, I believe it is, and we don't just give answers; we explain answers. But anyway, enough about our material. Yeah, I honestly think, for what a textbook costs, in addition, just for a few extra marks, I just think it's such a good idea. And mainly get them checked by someone else, because they're so subjective. You might think that's really good. It might be a load of rubbish. You might sit there and go, oh, it's not the same as what the model answer says, but it might be very good stuff. You've just explained it in a different way. So I strongly suggest you do lots and lots of rich questions and you get them checked, because it's only going to help you at the professional level, because you're going to have to written questions there. It's just something you can't avoid. And when you get into the dizzy heights of management in the real world, you will be writing written reports. You'll be allowed to have face-to-face contact with clients, and you will be able to you'll have to explain yourself. You can't just say, here's your tax bill, and they'll go, well, why is it so much? And you go, well, it just is. You can't do that. You need to be able to get information across to people who do not understand accounting concepts. In fact, people who just don't want to understand accounting concepts, they just want to know it in plain old English. No is the answer to that. If you're on AQ 2016, you can't see the AQ 2013 material. If you're on AQ 2013, you can't see the AQ 2016 material. However, the AQ 2013 material is based, it's good practice. The ethics stuff, maybe not so much, but if you know someone who's on AQ 2013 and then get your hold of it, it's not going to do any harm. But you personally, once you're on AQ 2016, you won't have access to it. However, if you pick up some old books from, I don't know, eBay or something like that of AQ 2013, like I said, especially spreadsheets, it's really not going to do you any harm. Just practice, practice, practice. Cannot, emphasize that enough. Cool. Any questions? Like I say, it is new to AAT. It's still embedded in the foundation unit. There's been lots of sittings of that now, so we get good feedback about what sort of thing possibly may or may not come up. There's not been that many people who've got as far as the synoptics on the advanced and professional, and there's not as many sittings as yet. The sort of first professional one was just before Christmas. Very, very, very good question. Good prompt as well. I'm getting a bit of pressure from AAT to get my students to sit their exam really, really early. The reason being, the AAT obviously have these windows when you sit your exam, and they have this, well, they just like to be careful, shall we say, that there's going to be enough sittings available for students to sit exams. Now, this isn't such an issue if you're a classroom-based student and your provider is going to have a space for you to sit your exam. If you are a distance learning student, we are hearing down the line that some centres will not be accepting external students in that exam period, that synoptic window, because they've got their own students who will be sitting their exam at that time. So the synoptic window is a week. So in that week, they've got to get all their students through, all their potential distance learning students through, and all external students through. And the AAT are a little bit concerned that there might not be enough capacity, especially on the advanced and professional levels, because there are fewer windows. The good thing, well, I won't say good, the thing with the advanced and professional is there's so few windows, you know which window you're going to be hitting, really. So in like the foundation year, you've got like 3 every month. You might hit that one, or that one. You know, you're not going to be, it's going to be one or the other. At the professional and advanced level, so there's like one at the end of this month, next week, the next one in 6 weeks' time. You should have a good idea which one you're aiming for. So I would definitely get it booked up as soon as you know which one you're going to be sitting on, because I really do think that exam places, especially if you want things like Saturdays or evenings, you're really going to struggle to get them. Book them in advance, not like a week. I'm talking like a month, really. Yeah, there's no reason why not. I mean, basically, a exam centre will have a diary. If they're old school, they might have it on a computer, and it'll say we've got this many available sittings. Who's sitting them? They won't set the exam up till the exam date or a couple of days before. They just need to know how many spaces they've got. You're not committed to anything. I mean, the exam centre might charge you if you don't sit it, or you need to cancel it or something, but you're not committed to sitting at that date if you don't pass the exam. So don't worry about that. Basically get it booked. Right, if you're on AQ 2013, would you study ethics and spreadsheets before transfer 2016? Spreadsheets maybe, ethics probably not, because the exam's going to be very, very different. What they teach, or what we teach, and what the AT examine under ethics hasn't really changed all that much. It's all about the threats to your fundamental principles. It's all about fundamental principles. They're fundamental. It's all about money laundering. Money laundering is so important. There's sustainability in there, so exciting, and there is holding client money. That's all there. It's all there. It's just exam questions for AQ 2013 ethics, and how it's been done in AQ 2016 Synoptic are so different. I wouldn't bother studying AQ 2013 ethics if you're even thinking about studying a Synoptic on AQ 2016. The other thing I should say is if you passed accounts prep, final accounts, sole traders and partnerships, costs and revenues, and indirect tax on AQ 2013, you move over to AQ 2016, you keep passes in them in the corresponding advanced bookkeeping, final accounts, management accounting and costing, and indirect tax on AQ 2016. If you sit spreadsheets or ethics on AQ 2013 and you move over to AQ 2016, you will lose those passes. So if you're on AQ 2013, leave ethics and spreadsheets to last, because if you don't complete, you want it to be because you've not sat spreadsheets and ethics, not because you've sat ethics and spreadsheets and not passed indirect tax, because you're going to have to sit indirect tax plus the Synoptic. So just be careful about moving over. It is something you would want to discuss with your training provider. I mean, it's not that crucial now to make a decision, because you've got 12 months nearly before you will have to move over. But come summer, you need to be thinking, am I going to complete by December 17? If not, you don't want to be studying ethics and spreadsheets on AQ 2013 if you don't think you can complete by December 17. You're just wasting time and money if you sit the exam, really. Anyone else got any questions? Cool. Thank you. Cool. My email address is nickcraggsfi.co.uk if you have any burning questions. Well, about anything, really, not just related to Synoptic. We are running these again at the next Synoptic window, which is March, and we're covering not all 3 levels. But yeah, don't worry about it. But main thing is just be careful if you do move over. You want to make an informed decision, because you move over, you ain't moving back. Cool. Right, I appreciate you all coming along and asking questions, because sometimes it's very boring if you just listen to yourself speak. But like I say, I will email out the recording of this to all of you, and I'll be putting it everywhere. But like I say, hope that cleared up a lot of your questions. But if anyone's got any questions, queries, you can come back to me at nickcraggs@fi.co.uk.